Okay. Um, if everybody can mute themselves. Good, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Nasser Ali, and I would like to welcome you all and thank you for joining us this evening for our YPS Young Leaders Award ceremony for 2020. Now, due to the COVID-19, we're having to host this ceremony as a virtual event. However, we are hopeful that for the next year's award, the Young Leaders Award 2021, we will be able to organize a physical event where we could actually meet you all face to face. Now, before we move on with the program, I just want to tell you the agenda for this program. So at the beginning, I'm just going to give you a few words, some introduction to this ceremony and to the award ceremony. Then I will pass on to our chief guest, and we're delighted and honored to have with us Afzal Khan MP, or should I say Dr. Afzal Khan MP. We're very, very thankful to Afzal for giving us his time. And Afzal will speak on the importance of encouraging young leadership. And then after his address, he will officially announce the winner of the Young Leaders Award 2020. And then after that, we'll pass over to Professor Waqar Ahmed, who will give his address. And after that, he will introduce our speaker, Dr. Yarjan Abdul from the University of Cambridge, who will give a presentation on the nanotechnology for future space application. And at the end, there will be, Yarjan will speak for almost about 30 minutes, and then there will be time for question and answer session. For those of you who are joining us today on this Zoom meeting, and also this program is actually being live streamed on Facebook. So if you've got any questions, do type them in the chat box. Now, before we move on, I just want to give you some information about the Young Professional Society. YPS was actually set up to help and support young people, hence the name Young in the Young Professional Society. So where the focus is on the youth, on young people, and to help these young people with personal and professional development. So the idea is to actually help these people and help to transform the lives of youngsters so that they are able to become successful professionals in their working lives. And we do this by focusing on three areas. Firstly, on communication, try to help youngsters to become better communicators. Secondly, innovation. And thirdly is leadership. So these are the three areas that we work under. And there's a lot of programs we run. And just to give you an overview of the functions of YPS, I'm not going to go through all these, but you can see, we have membership, there's skill clubs, courses, webinars, mentoring, coaching, training, accelerate learning. And I'm highlighted for the sake of this particular event, the ceremony, the awards and honors. And Young Professional Society actually recognizes excellence amongst outstanding young professionals who have demonstrated during their professional careers outstanding performance and have contributed considerably to their field of work. And we have three major awards that we confer on outstanding individuals. Firstly, the Young Leaders Award. And so this year was the inaugural Young Leaders Award. And then secondly, the Young Entrepreneurs Award, and also the YPS Lifetime Achievements Award. So this Lifetime Achievements is for senior people. So although it's a young professional society, we do have senior professionals who are involved and who act as mentors to help support these youngsters. So these Young Entrepreneurs Award and the Lifetime Achievements Award will start in 2021 in the new year. Now, for this Young Leaders Award, the criteria what the judges had used was, number one, the achievements. How much achievements has the candidate made in terms of his work and the progress? and the impact the work has had in the field. And number three is the sustainability of the work. So as I mentioned, we're honored to have with us our chief guest, Abdul Khan, who's very supportive of young professional society and the work that we do. And he has a particular interest in leadership and trying to help youngsters and to promote leadership to the youngsters. Abdul Khan, as you will all will know, no doubt know, he is the shadow deputy leader of the House of Commons. And if I begin to read his profile, then I'm sure it'll take about half an hour or so. So I'm not going to do that. And Afzal will speak on the importance of encouraging young leadership, and approximately for, I think, about 5 minutes or so. And then he will officially announce the winner of this year's 2020 Young Leaders Award, who, as you might have followed on the social media, is Dr. Yarjan Abdul. And we look forward to hearing from him later on today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Abdul Khan for his address.
Well, good evening and assalamu alaikum to everyone. And can I begin by saying thank you very much to you, Dr. Nasr Ali and Dr. Wakar. Both of you I've known for many, many years, seen you develop your careers as well. And I'm delighted that I'm here with you for this first announcement you're making of Young Professionals Leadership Award of 2020. And of course, we all know that this year has been really difficult because of COVID-19 pandemic. And that's why we are in this manner where we are. But this is also the beauty of the technology. It doesn't matter where you are globally, you can still connect up. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here with you this evening. Let me start by saying this. That, you know, there's a saying I came across from Malcolm X or Malik Shabazz. And what he had said was that if you are not at the dining table, then you are on the menu. So this actually is important in the context of leadership as well. That means really that you've got to be there on the table where decisions are being made. So if we want to have a better future, then we must invest in that future. And that means basically of young people, making sure that we invest in them, equip them, as you introduce in your introduction here, with all the necessary skills. And I think it's even more important now that where we are in life, that the pace of change is becoming faster and faster. And that also means then that really our base, our skill base, has to be flexible enough as well to cope with that change. Because if you don't cope with that change, then you are redundant, basically. That's what happens in the work, but that's what will happen generally in the power structures as well. So that, to me, is the key and why we have to make sure that we have those leadership. The second thing I would say is that, you know, when you look around the world, you see so many issues and concerns, how unfair the world in sense is. And if you want to make that difference, then you've got to be in a position of power, in a position where you can make that difference. And you often hear, you know, when we go to the mosques and people saying, doing prayers, so and so, such a situation is so bad, can we do something praying, you know, may Allah help on that. But then the other side of that, the whole issue is, you know, if you look at the life of the Prophet, if the first thing is you do the action and then you do the prayer. It's not that you don't do anything and then expect for the prayer. No, that's not how we're taught. So it's that doing of the action, equipping yourself to the best of that ability is the key. And that, I think, also takes you to other part, which I was happy to learn when I was growing up. That, you know, in essence, as a young person, you have 3 rights on your parents. And it's always, I find it fascinating that your child's rights actually become even before the child is born, in the sense of who the partner is. That is actually the right of the child in Islam. And the second is making sure you give the child a good name. And the third is probably the key bit here, which ties us into the leadership. That is your right again on your parents, that they educate people with all the necessary skills of life. And that is the right of that child on the parents. So for parents to have that responsibility, I think is also important. And this also then takes you to some of the other Eastern philosophies. The African proverb, it takes the whole village to bring up a young person. And these again puts into this point why we have to put our energies in that field. Now, my own journey, when you were doing your introduction, I was thinking, wow, we have come a long way now. And this is why I support your work as well, because at my time, we actually didn't have anything of this structure. We didn't have any help. We didn't have even any role models, because they themselves are amazing sort of strength they give you when you see a role model. You know that you too can achieve that. So it gives you that sort of energy as well. So we struggled. And I remember working at that stage, bringing Young Muslims UK to make sure the young people had a place where they could come together. But I think what you have introduced here, what you are doing actually is the next stage, next step, of giving those young peoples that skills which is needed. So I went through the hard way. And the second reason why I spend our time with young people is I think some of those difficulties they don't need to go through. I've had an amazing, ultimately a journey, starting as a councillor, being a Lord Mayor, being an executive member, and then defeating Nick Griffin and becoming a member of the European Parliament, where I was a Vice President of Security and Defence. I was then appointed as a Special Envoy for the President there. For the Muslim world, and then became member of parliament, then a shadow immigration minister, then a shadow foreign minister. So I did, it's an incredible journey actually as a person, but I think if I had more help in the early stages in my life, and then I think that journey could have been much shorter and much steeper. So this is, I think, where this all comes in. And the key bit finally I want to say really is, you've got to have right motivations. For me, serving the humanity is one of those basic ideas which I picked up from my local mosques, that the best among humanity are those who bring benefit to others. And then the other one, I think, to the future leaders I would share is an amazing saying of the Prophet Muhammad. And he said, a person whose 2 days are the same is in state of loss. And that in essence says, you don't stand still. Life doesn't stand still. Time is ticking away. But you must also keep on improving, going towards the excellence. And that is key. And as I was told by my teacher at that stage, that you got to define your area of excellence. The small area it is, the more chances you have to be the best in the world. So we can be, but making sure we find that small area of niche which we want to be the experts, and then work at it. And then the second secret in there, I think, is anything which is worth achieving, it's not going to come to you easily. You're going to have to work hard at it. You're going to have to show patience, and you got to show the determination. So the hard work and determination and patience together, it actually takes you to that excellence. So to say this, that I'm absolutely delighted that today you have our young person who's going to be awarded, and that, of course, young person is Dr. Yarjan Abdul. I feel so proud myself looking through some of his already achievements. And I have no doubt, inshallah, he'll serve the humanity for many, many decades and will make a huge difference. So it's a pleasure for me to announce our first winner tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abdul Khan, for your address and an excellent advice for the future youngsters. I think we'll pass over to Professor Ahmed now for his welcome address. Yeah, if you can unmute yourself. Professor Ahmed, if you can unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Afzal Khan. Can I ask all the audience listening, who would like to be a great leader? All raise your hands or type in the chat box. Thank you. Can I ask again, who would like to be mentored by the best? Raise your hands or type in the chat box. Thank you, thank you. So my name is Professor Waqar Ahmed. I am a professor of nanoscience at the University of Lincoln. And in the new year, I'll be taking up the post as Director of Enterprise, as well as maintaining my position as Professor of Nanoscience. For the past, I've been Director of Research for the College of Science. So I'm delighted to introduce you now to a brand new product that we're launching, which is a leadership program. And this program is titled Shoot for the Top, Step Up and Lead program. And why am I introducing this program now at this moment in time? And the reason I'm doing this is, one, to honor Dr. Afzal Khan for his achievements, for his inspiration. And he is somebody that I've admired for a long time. And also to celebrate the achievements of Dr. Yarjan Samad. So it's the right time to introduce this program. Who is this program for? So this program is for people who are really, really serious about leadership, and they want to get really, really good, and they want to get right to the top. So there's no trial and error. They'll be learning from experienced people who've got to the top. So when I started off my career, it was all trial and error. I'll try this, see what happens. I'll try something else, see what happens. So you fail, 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 fail. And eventually, you might succeed. So how is this program structured? Let me just share this screen with you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, we can.
Is this? Okay, so this is the program, Shoot for the Top, Step Up and Lead. And who is this program for? What are the objectives? So the objectives of this leadership program is to give you a leadership system that will equip you from wherever you are now to go right to the top in any field. And you'll learn from real world leaders in masterclasses, not just from theory, from academic journals or from academics. And you'll get a real immersion experience and mentoring from a top leader. So this program is from the real world, not from the academic world. So the way it will work is there will be an introductory seminar for 1 hour. So everybody who wants to come onto this program will have to attend that introductory seminar. Then there will be a 1-day workshop for people to attend, and then 6 2-hour master classes where we'll go through theories of leadership, but we'll also have a real world leader from the world of business, from the world of politics, from the world of sports. So we'll get people who are real leaders in their particular field. And then if you pass that stage, you go into an immersion experience where you'll have conversations with the masters. So these are people that are leaders in their field at the moment. And the places for this program is going to be highly limited. So you'll have to book very, very early to avoid missing out. And if you've got any questions, or you'd like some further information, you can contact email info@ypsociety.uk, or you can go to the website ypsociety.uk. So this is where you get all the information from. So do you want to know how I got to know Yarjan? Many years ago, maybe 12, 15 years ago, I can't remember the exact timing, I went to visit GIK Institute in Pakistan. I was invited by the Vice Chancellor. And while we were having these conversations, without any warning, he said to me, "Oh, there's about 500 students waiting for you, and you need to address them." I thought, I don't know what do they want me to talk about? And I don't know what I talk about. I probably talked about nanotechnology. So it was a spontaneous talk. And one of the people in the audience was Yarjan. And I was talking about nanotechnology. And in 1959, there was a scientist, a physicist called Feynman. And he spoke about writing with atoms. And he said that you can write an encyclopedia on the top of a pinhead using nanotechnology. So if you're writing in atoms and things have progressed so far. So if you write on the surface, you can write the whole encyclopedia. But if you take a grain of sand, so if you go to the desert in Saudi Arabia and take a grain of sand, and not only writing on the surface, but if you could write in the layers in between, you can actually write all the books in all the libraries in the world. The whole of the world's knowledge can be stored in that one grain of sand. So now we all know this now because there's so much information on World Wide Web and on Google and stuff. So all the information can be stored in a very small piece of material. So later, and then Einstein also said, at that time, all these things hadn't come true, but Feynman kept talking about it, writing with atoms and what the potential is. And Einstein said that imagination is more powerful than knowledge. So with nanotechnology, you're in the field of imagination. Whatever you can imagine and believe, you can achieve, and more tools are becoming available. And then, of course, nanotechnology is leading the field in the development of COVID vaccines and stuff. So I think it's an appropriate time for us to introduce Dr. Yarjan Samad from the University of Cambridge. He's a senior research fellow. He's got huge accomplishments, and he's going to be talking about graphene and nanotechnology in space. So without any further ado, I'd like to pass over to Dr. Yarjan Samad. Thank you.
Stop sharing, please, the screen.
Thank you, Professor Waqar Ahmed, for the very nice story of our meeting in GIK. Thank you, Dr. Nasser, for introducing me and for YPS in general and for considering my application for this award. And it makes it more special when it's coming from the very respected Dr. Afzal Khan. And I'm very delighted and happy and humbled to be here today and to be talking to you and to be receiving this award, nonetheless, virtually. So I'd like to talk a bit about what nanotechnology is doing in space and what are the future prospects and what we are doing in terms of materials development and for space applications. So I'd like to just share my screen. Okay, so as Professor Waqar introduced, I'm from the University of Cambridge. I am working at the Cambridge Graphene Center, University of Cambridge, UK. I'm working as a senior research associate and senior teaching fellow in the College of Engineering. And the outline of my presentation is very simple. It's I would like to tell you a bit about me because not many people might be knowing my origins, where I'm from, and what I've been doing, and a bit about the University of Cambridge. There is certain information about University of Cambridge which I would like to spread so that people get inspiration from this and think about pursuing research and science. And why we are talking about space technology today, why nanotechnology in space, and what is nanotechnology doing in space, and my efforts in this arena of space technology development. So I belong to Pakistan, the southmost part of Pakistan in Balochistan, and the area with the most famous area near my hometown is Gwadar. So this is also in the south, which is very well known these days because of the CPEC project in Pakistan. This is how my village looks like in Pakistan. It's a barren land, like sort of very dry land. It has some oases in many different areas. It's very backward in terms of development, but it's rich in culturally and with heritage. A lot of ancient sites there. It's famous for date palm trees, just like many other places in south of Balochistan, where we have more than about 200 types of different kinds of date palm trees. My journey is very diverse. So after I graduated from Ghulam Sakhan Institute, then I've spent time in the US, in Japan, in UAE, and in China, in Norway, in Germany, in many places where I've done research, where I've collaborated with different researchers in the world and have worked with them. Currently, I'm based at Cambridge, as I said before. So a bit about Cambridge, which is not so common. The knowledge which is not so common is that the University of Cambridge, the Nobel Prizes won by people with the University of Cambridge affiliation are more than 110. Whereas the entire world Nobel Prizes given so far are less than 1,000. So this is more than 10% or 11, 12% of the world's Nobel Prizes. And it's just one university in the world. And in the entire UK, the total number of Nobel Prizes won so far are 135, or a bit more maybe with the new editions. But as you can see that most of them, or actually almost all of them, have been brought to UK by the University of Cambridge. So that's the standard of research being done in the University of Cambridge, and the quality of research that is done here by some of the renowned professors and researchers and scientists in the world. So talking about the legacy of the University of Cambridge, everyone has heard about Sir Isaac Newton. He was here at Cambridge, and the famous apple tree is also here. We talk about number theory and how was it formed. It was formed by G.H. Hardy, who was at Cambridge. The Taylor series in mathematics, many mathematicians might know about. It was made by Brooke Taylor at the University of Cambridge. The log scale, which is used to plot everything these days, that was formed by William Oughtred, also at Cambridge, James Maxwell, Charles Darwin. The DNA structure discovery, which has made all these new vaccine formations and everything possible, it was done by Francis Crick and James Watson at the University of Cambridge. Dolly the ship became a household name, which was also cloned by Ian Wilmot at Cambridge. Stephen Hawking, who worked a lot on relativity, who passed away very recently, was also at Cambridge. So these are just a few names, and we can just go on and on. I mean, talk about the atom bomb, the electronic structure, the atomic structure, the laws of thermodynamics, jet engine, everything was basically, all these things were made at the University of Cambridge by scientists here. So why are we talking about space today? The first space war, sort of, which I call it space war because it was a Cold War between the US and the USSR on conquering the space. This was after the World War II, and the US and the USSR, which was called USSR before, they were fighting to conquer space. And in 1958, USSR sent the first man, Yuri Gagarin, to space. And after that, in 1958, NASA was formed. So NASA did not even exist when the USSR were working on space and sending their people to space. And after that, in 1969, NASA sent their men on Moon. So with the Apollo mission, so the Apollo mission continued. The mission which successfully reached the moon surface was Apollo 13, and after that there were many Apollo missions until Apollo 17. But after we landed on moon, people thought that, you know, what more can we achieve? That's the best that we could do in space. So the space research and this space war basically went down, and the research and work in space were very limited. But in 2000s, some private companies started working on spacecrafts and satellites very heavily, and then SpaceX also came into play, and with many other companies like Virgin Atlantic and whatnot. So a new era of space research with these commercial inclusions of space-based technologies was introduced, and so the world again thought about, or even smaller countries in the world started launching their space programs. Take, for example, UAE, and many other countries, they started developing their space program and sending their Mars missions, moon missions, and other satellite missions in general. So with this development, or very fast-paced development, there are many challenges in space which we need to tackle in order for us to conquer the space, or in order for us to gain more knowledge of this space, and maybe sometime go and camp on Mars, or maybe any other planet, or maybe even the Earth-like planet, which is called Kepler, which was very recently found. So what are the challenges in space? So one of the challenges is heat dissipation, that when you go to space, because of the radiation, there's a lot of heat. So take, for example, the Earth, which is orbiting, is like shown here, and then we have a lot of heat sources. If there's a satellite orbiting around the Earth, let's say for 200 or 300 kilometers on the surface of the Earth, so it is exposed to sun's radiations, the albedo from, and the IR from other planets. So because of these heat sources, including the sun's radiations, there's a lot of heat to be dissipated in this satellite. And then there's another problem in space, that although the sun radiation is capable of heating up everything inside the spacecraft, but just outside the spacecraft, the temperature is freezing, or actually it's way less than freezing, it's 3 Kelvin only. And that is also a problem, because there is a big difference of like extreme hot and extreme cold. So how to deal with this problem, and if there's heat generation inside the spacecraft, how to cool it down using the heat sink available just outside. Additionally, there is the radiation in space, and there are so many radiations which are not even known. Sometimes there are particles and ions, for example, iron, manganese, and these particles can penetrate into any surface that we know of, and generally, apart from a few which are possible to use, but they are not being as useful as we thought. If we go into deeper space, or if we go to for longer exposure times. So this radiation is also a big challenge if we would like to, let's say, camp or stay in space for longer periods of times. Because of this reason, the International Space Station is at a distance of about 400 kilometers on the surface of the Earth. But it takes a spiral path in order to protect itself from the radiations that we have in space. Similarly, there is another problem, which is the interstellar movement. For example, if we would like to go to moon with the current technologies, the minimum time that it will take us to reach the Mars is in years. So how do we shorten the time for practical applications, or for reaching our destinations in space, or even in deep space, in shorter periods of time? So these are the challenges that we are dealing with, and we want to develop technology for. Another challenge is development of the suit, which is protecting the astronauts from radiations that we talked about. So in terms of developing the technology, so what should we have in our mind when we are developing technology for space? Dr. Nasser was talking about sustainability. So that's what's required in space as well, because if we want to develop a technology for space which is not sustainable, or which is not applicable on the Earth, so it makes it unsustainable, it makes it not so useful in the long run if we talk about the economy of the technology. That's why the roadmap for the technology developed in space is that it should be cross-cutting. So whatever we develop for space, it should be useful on the Earth as well. And just like many technologies, for example, there are so many technologies that were developed for space which are helping us on the Earth, from advanced notifications of storms and hurricanes, to the faster internet speeds, all over the world to weather information and whatnot. So this is the kind of technology that we should be developing. Whatever we develop for space, it should be useful for the applications in Earth as well. For example, if we develop technology for deep space, so it should be such that the same technology should be useful for the International Space Station, for the RLVs, or for aircraft operations on ground, and many other things. So now, what about nanotechnology? Why are we talking about nano, and what is nano basically? So nano has to do with the size. If we have a little ant, which is about, in general, 5 millimeters or so, and like if you take a fly, it's only 3 millimeter, but if you go down, and there are microbes which are as small as 1 millimeter, and then if you go to micron scale, then we have these sea species, for example, the phytoplanktons, diatoms, etc., which are on the sea surface, which we cannot see, but they exist. So our sight is until this 1 millimeter size with the naked eye. After that, we cannot see what exists. For example, the coronavirus, the infamous coronavirus, is about 100 nanometer or so, or generally 60 to 150 nanometers in size, which we cannot see with our naked eye. But we go down, then anything below 100 nanometer is considered nano, and that's where we can work to develop technologies which are ruling, or which will be ruling the space as well as the Earth. So similarly, graphene is a material. It's kind of a nanomaterial, but we prefer not to call it nanomaterial. It's a material in the nano size. So graphene is made from graphite. Just like graphite is a stack of atoms, just like, for example, if you have a bundle of notes, if you take one note out, if you take one sheet of atom out from carbon, from graphite that you find from the Earth, then this graphite sheet can be converted to fullerenes, to balls of atoms, and to tubes of atoms, which are called CNTs, to sheets or little pieces of sheets of atoms, which are called graphene. So fullerene won Smalley the Nobel Prize in 1996, and graphene won Professor Geim and Novoselov the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2010. Why is graphene important? So graphene has many interesting properties, and one of the properties is that it's very strong. It's as strong as if you have a saran wrap thick graphene sheet, it can lift an elephant on a pencil, and that's the strength that we're talking about, which is tens and hundreds of times of magnitude stronger than steel. So once graphene was developed, then there were many other 2D materials, or these kind of little sheets or nano sheets of 2D materials. They were invented. So this became a class of material. So now graphene is not one material alone. It became a class of material of which thousands exist. After 2D material like graphene, there were another inventions like the boron nitride, metal dichalcogenides, LDHs, and MOFs, and metal oxides, and polymer 2D sheets, black phosphorus MXene, and so many others. So just like that, there were thousands of materials which were discovered, which can exist and which can be used for different technologies, and the properties are much different and much better than their bulk parent material. For example, graphene comes from graphite, but the properties of graphene are much more superior than graphite. Hexagonal boron nitride comes from the boron nitride powder, which is a white powder, but then when you make 2D sheets out of boron nitride, it's much different and much better than its parent material. So like this, the 2D materials were invented, a lot of them, and then they were applied for sensing, like they were printed as sensors. They were used for laser development. They were used for water filtration, water purification. They were used for protective coating to protect against corrosion in the industry. They're used for EMI shielding against radiations. They're used for conductive inks, for printed electronics, and for solar cells, and so many other applications, for hard drives and whatnot. So this is the kind of depth and breadth we have in the applications of 2D materials, of which graphene is one kind. So whenever we talk about graphene, we are talking about a class of material which is called 2D materials, and which is a broad class of material, and it can be applied to almost all sectors in related to our general life. So in terms of carbon nanotubes were implemented in some of the technologies in space. One of the examples is the Juno spacecraft of NASA, which was sent to space quite long time ago, and it had composites made of CNTs, carbon nanotubes, installed, and it was sent to space. And similarly, there have been many other applications of composite materials with CNTs, but one of the most ambitious project with CNTs is the cable, which is supposed to be a lift basically between the space and the Earth, and ideally it was supposed to be between Moon and the Earth. So take for example a cable which is providing us an opportunity to climb, just like taking a lift to the Moon. And that's how it was supposed to look like, and the project is still under development. Actually, I think they are now rethinking of its application, how to do it. But this is one of the desirable applications of CNTs in space. In terms of graphene, so we are working on graphene and pushing graphene in space, and in fact we are the first. I was among the first team of scientists who tested graphene in space environment. So in terms of graphene, we make very low density materials as low as 1 milligram or 2 milligram per centimeter cube. It is just like as the density of air. So if you leave these materials in space, in atmosphere, they will just fly. But they're strong. They can take the weight. They can withstand any form of stress. So as you can see here, a droplet of water can take this petal down, but this block of graphene, it is just sitting on top of these petals because of its low weights. And these are the kind of materials that we are looking for in space. So that's how these materials look like when you look at them with the eye of a microscope. So these are very porous structures, but structurally very strong and rugged, and we can use them for making materials in space. And I'll give you some of the examples of what we are doing with these kind of materials in space. So another material that we work on is the electronic textile. In 2013, I was the first person who invented this thing called electronic textile of graphene. So what we did is that we used graphene as an ink to just coat a fabric or any textile, dye it with graphene, but it's not a normal dye, because this dye makes graphene electronic. So it can be electrically conducting, and it can sense things, and it can do many other interesting things, which I'll just show you in a bit. So this was the way we coated graphene fiber. So any textile fibers with graphene, we coated polyester, nylon, cotton, wool, Kevlar, glass fibers, and everything, all the textiles with graphene. And as you can see here, so the plain textiles and the coated textiles, they become gray, but they become very interesting property-wise. And how interesting, I'll show you. So the coating is very strong. You can wash it, you can even twist it, and nothing happens to the graphene coating on the surface. These textiles, we can use it for health monitoring in space. So they can be used as a wristband to monitor the blood pressure of astronauts, and with accuracy. And also they can be used for pressure sensing. For example, you can just put a very little fabric and you can use it as a pressure sensor for weight measurements, for health monitoring and applications like the blood pressure. Additionally, we also use this for ECG monitoring. So you can use these textiles. So you can just be wearing these textiles and you can get your ECG done. This is an example of ECG. So the ECG done with with the liquid electrode, which is used normally in the hospitals, and with this graphene-based textile, and we have 97% accuracy of ECG results. Similarly, these textiles, why are we talking about these textiles, first of all? So these textiles can measure temperature, can measure pressure, can measure health, blood pressure, can do ECG. So we are making the suits out of this textile, and then they can do even toxic gas sensing around us. So for example, if there is any leakage of toxic gas within the cabin of a spacecraft, it can be done with the textile that one is wearing. And similarly, the temperature can be sensed as well. So the fabric is multifunctional, that it can do everything itself without taking any other devices inside. And this is the roadmap that we're working on. So for example, we can have these textiles coated with graphene and related materials, and we can do all sorts of sensing. And we can also do energy generation, because we can also make these textiles to produce electricity with the help of the materials that we coat them with. In terms of once we have the technology ready, and once we develop the materials and the devices which we believe are useful for space, then comes the testing. So many different aircrafts can be used for testing. For example, the zero gravity parabolic flights provided by ESA and Novspace, and the sounding rockets can take a lot of payload, enough for many experiments. Similarly, there is the space rider, which can stay in space sometimes for hours, and a lot of good tests can be done. And then, of course, we can also send experiments in the International Space Station to stay there for years, months, or forever. So we have used these kind of setups. So we have basically installed all our experiments in these kind of boxes, and we have taken them to parabolic flights. So this is an example of a parabolic flight where we have flown and tested some of the materials and devices that we've developed. So this is our experimental site in a parabolic flight in 2017, and this is our experimental site in the parabolic flight in 2019. And we could have gone in 2020 as well if we did not have the pandemic. Similarly, this is the kind of experiment that we are doing in these kind of parabolic flights. Besides the parabolic flight, we have launched the sounding rockets with our experiments involved, where we have studied a lot of we've taken a lot of measurements on the graphene-based materials. So we're the first group of scientists who tested graphene in space for the first time, and this was the first rocket launched with a graphene material. It was done in 2019 in Kiruna in Sweden. So we got a lot of attention from media around the world for the research work and for the materials that we developed for space. So in conclusion, the graphene and related materials, along with some other nanomaterials which have been used in the past, they have the potential to solve the space challenges, whether it's the passive cooling, the cooling without any energy input, which we do, the interstellar transportation, which is a developing field, because we want to shorten the time of reaching from one destination to the other in space. If we want to camp on the moon, then we want a quick trip to the Mars, then this can be possible with the help of these kind of materials for enabling a technology called laser propulsion, which I did not have time to talk about. Then we can develop sensors, radiation protection clothes, healthcare systems made of these kind of materials, and lightweight and strong composites. So we have made graphene 3D structures which are very light and weight, and we have used them for passive cooling, for gas sensing, for development of composite materials, and we have also made graphene-based electronic textiles for health monitoring, sensing, and heating and cooling, among other things. So with this, I'd like to acknowledge my family, and most of all the kids in the family who keep it always, light on you, because whenever you talk to kids, all your stresses are relieved. So these are some of my nephews and nieces whose company have always been very encouraging for me. And finally, I'd like to thank my colleagues and team from different parts of the world, from UAE to Europe to UK. So that's all from my side, and I'm open for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yarjan, for an excellent, enlightening presentation. Yes, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you've got any questions, please do type them. We do have some questions here, which I can see. We have one from Ali, I think. You are a big role model for many emerging young scientists. And I want to know, what is one thing you think is a must-have quality to carry on through struggles, failures, and setbacks during one's journey, as I'm sure you've had them at some point too.
I believe the most important thing is setting up your goals, and the goals should be those for which you're passionate to work for. If you don't have goals, then you don't have a path on which you can put all your hard works in, and you can be distracted. So if you have your goals set, the failures cannot turn you down, and the failures cannot distract you from what you are set to achieve. Maybe with hardship, but you will achieve them if you set the right goals, and then do everything in order to enable yourself to reach your goals. I think that's the most important thing.
Okay, thank you. There's another question. Many people argue that why spend time and resources on space technology instead of dealing with poverty and hunger in our world? What is your view on that, and why is it important?
Yes, this is a very good question. And you know, if we look back, what space has done, although some of the space research was not done with goodwill, because there was a lot of, as I said, there was this space war kind of situation and all, but still the research that has been done, space has been so helpful to humanity. If we look at the way that, you know, we have the internet today because of the technology that we have developed in space, and the weather and all the notifications that we get, the storms, earthquakes, and everything that, you know, we are capable of dealing with the help of these space technologies. So these space technologies have been very helpful. So, and now we have this concept, which is a very sustainable concept of cross-cutting technologies. So you need to develop technologies which help you in space and as well as on the Earth. And these can be technologies which help you to deal with poverty as well. This is one point. And the other point is that the amount of money spent in research is not that much, actually. If you talk about, if you compare it with the money spent in defense, in you know, so many advertisements, and so many other things, they are much more than what is spent on space. Space can help in agriculture. Space can help in security. Space can help in remote sensing, in doing or increasing the productivity of oceans. So these are all things that space can help, and these things will basically help alleviate poverty as well.
Okay, thank you. Also, you know, the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2010, as you showed, was awarded to Professor Geim and Professor Constantine from the University of Manchester for their groundbreaking experiments on graphene. And since then, there's been a lot of interest on graphene due to the potentials of this material in terms of different many applications. And that even resulted in the Chinese president coming to Manchester and actually visiting the Graphene Center. Now, it's been 10 years now. Do you think that graphene lived up to his expectations, and did a lot of these applications materialize?
Definitely, because you see, when you talk about the evolution of a materials, since we are living in this fast-paced world, so we think in an expedited way as well, and we think that the technology must develop it with the blink of an eye. But if you talk about the development of materials, take for example the steel, how long did it take for steel to revolutionize, and how long did it take for the alloys, super alloys, and the composite materials to take over their predecessors' materials? And we're talking about hundreds of years. So now for graphene, it has just been 10 years since the Nobel Prize was given, and then the research was expedited. I remember in 2013 and 14, for many scientists, it was already, I was working on graphene, and even making a bit of graphene was a big deal. So you can understand from this point that it has not been long that we have increased our familiarity with graphene, but still there are a lot of applications of graphene which have already proven. After graphene was invented, a new class of material was formed, as I said, 2D and layered materials. And among the 2D and layered materials, a lot of them are already used in optoelectronics, making lasers, making sensors. And there are thousands of these kind of 2D and layered materials. In 2018, there was superconductivity discovered in graphene by Professor Jaliro Herrera from MIT. And because of this invention, if graphene was not formed, then superconductivity in graphene wouldn't have been discovered. And he might be a candidate for a future Nobel Prize for this invention. And if we work dedicatedly on graphene-based superconductors, we might make the room temperature superconductors a reality.
Is there a material now beyond graphene? Or is there any material better than graphene?
Yeah, as I said that, after graphene was developed, so there were many other 2D materials, layered materials, which came into play. Now, when you talk about materials beyond graphene, you should talk about the application. So what property are you looking for? For example, if you're talking about a material with semiconducting properties, with exceptional semiconducting properties, then graphene is not the option anymore. There are dimetal chalcogenides, and then so many other sulfides, 2D layered sulfides. They are used for semiconducting applications, and they are much better than graphene. But they also were discovered because of the discovery of graphene, because they are also 2D and layered. So graphene is not the only option. It depends on the application. So as material scientist, whenever something comes to me, a question or a challenge comes to me, I evaluate it based on the properties which are required. And then we go back to the library of materials that we have to solve that issue.
Okay. You mentioned applications. In your opinion, I mean, nanotechnology has a lot of different applications. In your opinion, which applications do you think are the most important ones?
Yes. Now we need to talk about the current industry and the emerging industry. For the current industry, the composite materials are the most important applications because we can directly put them in the industry floor, and then we can start working on them. And some of the applications are already on the industrial floor with graphene. So the composite materials are the most important when it comes to the application of graphene for the traditional industry, for the current industry, for the mature industry. For the emerging industry, for example, quantum information system, quantum technology, for these kind of applications, properties like superconductivity is very important. Properties like conduction is very important. So these kind of applications are worthy for quantum information system, which is an emerging field and which has a lot of interest. For example, the European Union just passed a €1 billion project for quantum technology, and graphene is in that among the materials which they are exploring for quantum information system in the future.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, for example, nanotechnology has applications in sort of medical field as well, you know, where it could sort of potentially cure cancer. Also, there's a lot of people around, especially in the developing countries, who actually die from drinking contaminated water. And I'm sure nanotechnology can actually provide solutions or nanotechnology-based filters which can actually purify water and actually save human life, which I think these are one of the important ones, in my opinion, of applications where you can actually improve, save lives. And obviously then we have global warming as well in the energy sector, where nanotechnology can play an important role.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. We have a question here. What is, we see, you know, you say you're from Balochistan, from Pakistan, and you're working on space sort of technology here in Cambridge. What is the future of space technology in Pakistan? Someone's asked.
Well, the future depends on how we form it, how we shape it. So currently, I know that there are some efforts in this regard in Pakistan. There are some works, and there is some thing that I'm aware of that they're developing. So Pakistan, there's a background of space program in Pakistan, by the way, which people are not aware of. In 1960s, before the Apollo missions were launched, so Pakistan collaborated with the US to develop space technology, and they launched more than perhaps 5 or 6 satellites to develop an understanding of space before man lands on the moon. So we have a hand in sending the man on moon. So this is something which is not common knowledge and people are not aware of. Besides that, after that, we haven't been so keen in space programs. But recently there is some interest, and I've been talking to people who are interested to develop technologies for space, for agriculture, for other things which are important to Pakistan. I think that will be important. So the future of space technologies in Pakistan is in our hands, how we shape it and how we progress it. For now, there is not much done, but there are some efforts which can be enhanced if we develop it in trust among the common people, among the students, among the young people.
Yeah, and no doubt you're doing great work, state of the art at Cambridge on space research. Is it possible to actually do such sort of great research outside of Cambridge as well? Are there groups like in the UK or elsewhere in Europe or Asia who are doing similar kind of work?
So I'm sure it is possible because at the end of the day, I've done research elsewhere, and then I came to Cambridge, and then I developed on the kind of research that I did elsewhere. So the fact that Cambridge is so good, as I said, that there is a legacy, and if the legacy was built by such exceptional people, so Cambridge still has a lot of exceptional people. And the team of all these, like the pairs working together of all these exceptional people, make Cambridge the name that it has and the quality that it delivers in terms of research. It is possible in other parts of like anywhere else, if the right, the right people for the right job and the right facilities are there. Even Cambridge is collaborating with many other countries, many other universities. I was working in the University of Tokyo, and Cambridge collaborates with the University of Tokyo, and so many other things happening there as well. And in some things, they might be even better than Cambridge. So I think it's quite possible, yes.
Okay, thank you. If we look at your sort of CV and that, as Professor Ahmed mentioned as well, the first time he met you was in GIK in Pakistan. And obviously you were studying at the time in materials science and materials engineering. And then after, you moved on to the UAE and Abu Dhabi, again, materials sort of science, materials engineering. And now you've come to Cambridge as working in space, as a space scientist and that. I mean, would you want to be recognized as a material scientist or a space scientist?
Well, these things don't matter to me because what I do is that I develop materials for space, I develop materials for healthcare in space, I develop materials for spacecrafts, and space is a very interdisciplinary field. And all the space scientists working for NASA, ESA, and JAXA, or any other space agency, or even, for example, the newly built space agencies in the UAE, they all come from different fields, and they join together, they join hands, and then they develop products for space. So I don't mind being called a space scientist or a material scientist. For me, it's the same thing. But my expertise are in materials. I develop materials for space. I used to develop materials, graphene-based composite for aerospace. Now I develop materials for directly space applications. So these terminologies are very irrelevant for me.
Okay. And you shown in your presentation, the opening slides, when you're introducing Cambridge University, that there's approximately around 10-12% of the Nobel Prizes have been allocated to people from Cambridge. And I know you work with a very renowned professor, Professor Andre Ferrari, at the Graphene, Cambridge Graphene Center at the University of Cambridge. And obviously you're working involved with cutting edge sort of research and collaborating with Nobel Prize winners, people from the Manchester group as well, from Andre Geim and that. Can we expect to see maybe you as a future Nobel Prize? What's the likelihood of that?
I was talking about a goal, and that everyone should have their goal, and they should work towards their goal, and they don't get distracted. I would like to believe that I'm working towards that goal, and whether or not it's realized in my life or after that, this is, I leave it on Allah, on God, but I'm, striving for that. I'm striving to develop technologies which did not exist. I'm striving to form fundamental studies in materials which did not exist. So, that's for Allah to decide if I get this honor granted, but I just keep trying and keep striving for developing new technologies and developing new science.
Okay, so of course it'll be a proud moment for you to be actually receiving this Young Leaders Award. Now how will you actually use this award? And how important is this, in leadership and you getting this award? And how would you inspire? You showed your last slide, you got a lot of, nephews, nieces, and a lot of youngsters. How would you inspire them, as a leader to do well? And how important is leadership in science?
So it's very important for me, and leadership is important in science more than anything else anyways, because I think since we don't do a lot of humanities studies, so we scientists are termed as dry people, and people who cannot, who do not have the best of communication skills, which is changing these days. So it's very important. Like the award, first of all, is very important to me, and I'm really humbled to be receiving this award today. At the same time, I think this is an opportunity for me to inspire people, which I've been trying to do, and especially in Pakistan and especially in Balochistan, to work with the young people, to work with the kids in the school. And for me, inspiration means like to draw their talents out, to let them set their goals, to let them come up, to let them develop or weave their dreams into reality. And that's how I expect to use this award to inspire the younger ones.
Okay, I think we'll just take two questions and then we'll just wrap up here. First question here from Afzal Khan MP. He says, what are UAE doing in this field in terms of this space technology research?
So UAE has made at least 2 space agencies for now. One is called the UAE Space Agency, and one is called the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Research Center. So first of all, they developed a very good Mars mission in which they have sent a Mars mission which is studying the surface of the Mars to develop new science and to increase the knowledge of like our knowledge about Mars. So which was already launched. And now they have also a moon mission launched very recently, which also I'm in discussion with them. I'm a part of it. I'm working with them to contribute towards that mission as well. And in general, they are launching a lot of satellites for their own applications, their own communication satellites, their own weather satellites, and whatnot. So they're growing their space independence kind of. So they want to be really independent in terms of these kind of technologies in space. That's why they built their own space agencies.
Okay, and the final question, which sort of links a bit to the earlier question as well. Any chance of Pakistan getting another Nobel Prize?
I think there are many chances, and the fact that I see a lot of Pakistanis now working really exceptionally in many parts of the world, within Pakistan, outside Pakistan, the chances are many, and the person who's asking the question, they can themselves even aspire to develop something which is worthy of a Nobel Prize or more.
Okay, so I think thank you very much, Dr. Yarjan, for an excellent presentation and also for answering the questions that people have put forward. I would like to thank everyone for joining us today for this awards ceremony. I would like to thank once again Dr. Afzal Khan, our chief guest, for his time, for his address, and for his support of Young Professional Society and the work that we do. It's always great to have people like Afzal Khan supporting us. And just to sort of clarify that, YPS is, we are interested in the youth here. It's a secular organization. So we're not about, Afzal Khan is here, not necessarily, we're not talking about Labour or any other party, but it's about youngsters and it's about leadership and trying to help youngsters. That's what the aim is. And I would like to thank Afzal for being with us and supporting us. And Dr. Yarjan, congratulations to you for receiving this award, the Young Leaders Award. As Professor Waqar Ahmed mentioned, and about the the leadership program, he did leave some information on the website, email if you're interested in that. And maybe before I close this, I will pass over to Professor Ahmed, and he can have a final sort of mention on that. So before I do that, I once again like to thank everyone, those people who are watching us on live stream on Facebook. Thank you very much for joining. And I would like to wish you all, this is the final opportunity, I'd like to wish you all a happy new year, a happy, peaceful, prosperous, healthy new year. And hopefully there'll be opportunities where we'll meet, hopefully face-to-face in 2021. So at this point, I'd like to pass over to Professor Ahmed for his closing remarks. And then before we close, maybe if Afzal Khan wants to say something before we close the meeting. Professor Ahmed?
All I'd like to say is, Yarjan, I'm so proud of you winning this award and all the efforts that you made in bringing Pakistani science to the forefront. Well done, congratulations, and I hope you win the Nobel Prize soon as well. Thank you.
Afzal, before we wrap up, do you want to say anything? If Afzal Khan is still there with us, or his line might have dropped. No, maybe he might have, line might have dropped. Okay, once again, thank you very much, and stay safe, and all the best for 2020, 2021. Happy New Year. Thank you. All right.